I just see it like, I'm like, somebody coming, you crying, and you just give it a blank stare like, so can we get to the topic?
But it ain't that. I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to get them to think logically. Because to me, I have dealt with a lot of people that have a lot of anger, all right, that were in my life, my family, stuff like that. So I learned that anger is not the best way to handle situations. Because I've seen people fight. I've seen stuff get tore up. So for me, I'm like, I cannot let myself get to that place. So because then that, I don't want people to feel like that they can't come to me. And I think the way that I do things, I have a caring heart, but it don't always, it may not come out in my language, but you'll see it in my actions. And so if you're trying to so with DeVoe, I know I got to just give him the plan, give him the actions, stuff like that. So then we'd be good, right? If I'm dealing with somebody that's emotional, I have to try to find a way to make it an emotional appeal, right? So you got to figure out, if you're trying to figure out how to deal with conflict with those types of individuals, you got to figure out what works best for that individual, not what works best for you. Because if I'm dealing with an emotional person, I can't come at them facts, because they probably not going to hear that, right? So, and then the other thing I would say is I use this 4-step process. You probably use it too from Therapist Aid. And the first step is focus on the problem and not the person, all right? Focus on the problem and not the person, all right? The second step is you got to listen to the individual, and you got to hear their whole problem. So whatever the issue is that they got.
Can you say that part again?
You got to hear their whole problem.
Say it a little bit louder. Just a little bit louder for me.
You got to hear the whole problem before you try to fix the problem. All right, now, that ain't how I say it in the thing. I can't remember the worksheet. But, yeah. So you got to hear the whole problem. So it don't matter how I feel about the problem. I need to hear what you feel about it.
Say that one more time, louder.
It does not matter how I feel about the problem. I got to understand how you feel about it. All right, look. Yeah? So, go ahead. Yeah. And then, after I've understood how you feel about the problem, then I tell you how I feel about the problem. And the person has to listen to me to understand the whole problem that I have. Right? Now, it do seem like a lot of work. Right? But they got to hear they got to understand. And then,
but what about,
hold up. You got to let me finish.
Okay.
Hold up.
Listen to the whole problem. You just said it. I want to go at him so much.
Be quiet, go on.
All right,
moderators, go on, sir.
All right. And then I have to tell them. So instead of me attacking the person and blaming and insulting, right, I have to use I statements because I have to express it from my lens, right? So I feel angry when you don't wash the dishes, for example. I feel, instead of saying that you dirty person, wash these dishes, right? Because if you do that, the person's going to shut down, and they're not going to listen to you because they're going to get in their feelings. The other thing that it talks about is it says take a break, take a time out. So if you get to the point where it's insults or people's not listening, take a break. And it says that if it is important, make sure you come back, right? If it's important enough, make sure that you come back. That's one of the things. Sometimes we have arguments and fights. We take that time out. We cut them off. Uh-oh. But we don't come back to it, right?
I agree.
You got to come back to it when you're not mad.
We block them.
When you're not mad. Come back to it when you're not mad. And you don't take and you say, you didn't do this, and you didn't do that, and you didn't do that, and tell them a million different problems. Just focus on one right now. Just focus on that problem. I was late, Sherman. That was the problem.
You know what I like to do? I'm known for this one. You hungry? Use it. You hungry?
That just means that now we can go out someplace and eat and talk about it there.
No. That means we go eat.
We go talk about it. We go forget about it and not come back to it.
We can come back.
Not going to forget.
We can come back. I didn't say forget. All I said is you hungry. The break he talking about. You take that break. Okay. You go eat.
You take the break together. You get energized.
It depends on how it goes.
Here's the last piece to it. It's a win-win. You got to come up with a win-win situation. That's it. That's the last thing. You got to come up with a win-win situation. So if it is that food, let's figure out a place that we want to eat together. Now, I like Taco Bell and you like Wendy's. Well, you could do that, right? We both going to that. But you can't just say, I'm getting Taco Bell, and we're going to figure out, we're going to go to Taco Bell. You got to find something that's mutually beneficial. So maybe for me, if I don't like how you doing the dishes, maybe I'll do the dishes, but you sweep the floor, right? So you finding out a win-win situation for them.
I'm in the wrong field. This too.
And let me just, I'll say this too as part of that, because part of what we're talking about when you talk about how do we navigate this walking on eggshells, part of what we're talking about is how to effectively communicate. And that's what Lauren was talking about when he gave those examples. Here's something that's important to keep in mind that I tell my clients a lot. There's a very fine line between being assertive in our communication and being aggressive. It's a very fine line. That line is in the presentation of the information. You can say one thing 2 different ways and you will get 2 totally different responses. So if several people from various walks of life are all saying the same thing about us, everybody ain't wrong. So then that means maybe we have to change our approach. It doesn't mean that we have to lower our standards or be less than. It means that we got to moderate. And maybe it means that we are being aggressive in our communication rather than being assertive. There's this thing called the 7-38-55 rule. I don't know if you all have heard of that before. If you Google it, it'll come right up. There was this psychologist named Dr. Albert Mehrabian who wanted to study personal communication. So he did some research on it, and he came up with what he called the 7-38-55 rule of communication. And you Google it, it'll come right up. What he said was, in our personal communication with each other, 55% of our communication is body language. 55% is body language. 38% is voice and tone, and only 7% are the words that we actually speak. So there's several things that we can conclude from that. Number one, what we heard growing up rings true, and that is, it's not so much what you say, it's how you say it. His research backs that up. Because of that, the second thing rings true, and that is, in our communication with each other, we have to make sure that the presentation of the information is as good, if not better, than the message itself. Because if it is not, people will never get to the message because, and I use this analogy, they're licking their wounds because you attacked them with your presentation. It's the analogy that Cliff Huxtable gave on that episode of The Cosby Show when Vanessa brought Dabney, home just unannounced. He told Dabney that Vanessa brought him to them on a garbage can lid. And so they couldn't receive him because the presentation was so shoddy that they couldn't get past the presentation to look at the product. If we don't moderate how we present information to people, they will never get to the content because they're still trying to decipher or, figure out, why did you come at me like that? So in order for us to effectively communicate, we have to present information in a way that people can hear it and understand it. That's the difference between being assertive with our communication and being aggressive. You can get the same response with assertive communication. You leave people with their pride, their dignity, their respect. When you use aggressive communication, with yelling, screaming, cussing, fussing, putting them down, threatening them, you may get what you want, but you leave that person feeling pretty bad about themselves. And then the next time that they have something to say, guess what they'll do? They'll eat it. They'll shut down. They won't even come back to you. And if that's the case, then we failed.
I just want to say something real quick to piggyback off of what you're saying and also to address something else that you said that is very true. As a Black woman, when I was in a relationship, I had to understand how to talk to my significant other. I had to understand how to create a space to allow him to feel vulnerable enough to come talk to me, which goes to being able to be a confidant. Everybody don't need to know your business, which goes to not nagging you when you come in the door when something goes wrong. How do I approach you with this solution? I mean, with this situation, so there can be a solution. It goes to just creating that safe space where I'm not degrading you when you show emotion.
Right.
Because this is supposed to be your safe space, right? So if I can't be safe with my significant other by choice, why am I with that significant other? So on this platform, I do want to say to any women that are hearing me, please be mindful, because our Black men don't have a lot of spaces to be able to go to like we do. You know, it's nothing for us to go to our girls and talk about it and try to come up with the solution or whatever. We do have a whole lot more resources. So not all women talk, and not all women talk right. But please be mindful. Please be mindful. Do not break that man's spirit. Create a space that he wants to come home to, and be able and willing to listen so that he can be vulnerable with you. Because when y'all walk out that door, y'all fighting a war, your own war, because you are Black on a Tuesday. A Black male on a Tuesday, you are an immediate threat, and you were born that way in this society. So you need to have a space where you, if you have a significant other, a friend, something where you can feel comfortable going home to and feeling welcome, where you can lay your burdens down. And we need the same thing. I know it's been times I'm like, I am tired of wearing the pants all the time. I'm tired of, you know what I mean? Like it's a burden. So we need to create that space for each other. But our tongues can be double-edged swords when we want them to be, and we know how to use them. So women, please, please be mindful of that, because we can't afford to keep breaking them down. That's all.
I just wanted to say one other thing.